Welcome. Today is Friday, October 20th, 2023. I do not own the rights to this music that y'all hear, but I thought it was such a great song that I just wanted to let it play. I hope you all can hear it. It's called Love Song by Canton Jones. If y'all don't know it, please just Google it. You can't sing about love without singing about me. Yes, we're gonna begin this podcast with a little music. Singing about me. And I'm not a singer, of course I'm not, but I just like this song so much. Please listen to the lyrics of it. Canton Jones, Love Song. Now, of course, I always begin my podcast talking about real estate, real life, real talk, coming at you real live. Now, today's topic is going to be about real estate investing, EMD with new construction. EMD means earnest money deposit with new construction. Also, my Q&A, my questions and answers. And I'm going to end it with a closed mouth don't get fed. Alexa, turn the volume down to 3. Yeah, so I like that song, y'all. So I just had to basically talk about it. Play it real quick. So let me begin with real estate as always. I had a question come up this week about getting into real estate investing. So the question that I posed and asked to the person was, what form of real estate investing are you looking to get into? Because there are several forms of investing in real estate. One, there's the hold and flip. That's when people are buying properties, they're renovating them, and then they're reselling them for a higher amount than what they bought it at, and also than with the money they put in. And then also there's the rental properties, when people buy a lot of rental properties and they tend to get a positive cash flow each month, which is like passive income to them. And then there's the new thing with the Airbnb. People are buying properties in certain locations and they're doing them as an Airbnb. So I always like to say that when a person is thinking about doing any kind of real estate investing, please know what part of the real estate investing that you particularly would like to do, because there are many aspects to it. And at the same time, though, it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming, especially when you don't know what it is that you want to do. So please narrow it down. If you're going to do Airbnb, if you're going to do rental properties, or if you're trying to get a property to, flip to earn a huge profit. That is not as always as easy as it may seem. If it was, for one, everyone would be doing it. But for two, there are many components involved with the hold and flip. First of all, you got to buy low. Second of all, you have to have the resources to actually buy, which a lot of times is either cash or hard money loans. And then the hard money loans, they charge a certain percentage daily. Then there's the cost of the construction people who are actually going to be doing all the work, all the contractors. And then there's the ARV, the after resale value, how much you're going to sell it for, with the hopes of making a profit, a huge profit on top of that after all of that is, paid for, what it was bought for, what the money borrowed for, what the construction that was done for, and then selling it with all those expenses as well too. So please understand that. Then when it pertains to rental properties, you have to keep in mind that whenever you're getting a rental property, you want to always make sure that your property is bringing in a positive cash flow. Like, for example, let's say hypothetically you have a loan on it, and if your mortgage is, let's say hypothetically, is like $1,500, you want to at least be getting, $2,000 or more, have a 500 plus cash flow coming in order to offset any expenses that you may accrue during the year. Now, when people have rental properties, one of the things that acts like a maintenance man for people who own rental properties and can't do it is having a home warranty on the property. That's why home warranties are very important. Some people like to have certain, Alexa, stop. Excuse me. Some people like to have property management groups that will actually manage the properties for most homeowners, but most property management companies charge a certain percentage. They charge anywhere from 7 to 10% to do that. So just make sure that when you're choosing a property management company, that they have a good reputation and you might want to Google them, get some reviews, get some feedback on them if you choose to use them. But if you're not going to use them, please always have a home warranty in place, and also make sure that the positive cash flow is at least 500 or more dollars. That way it would seem worth it. Otherwise, if you're just breaking even, sometimes for some people it's not worth the headaches, because whenever you have rental properties and you're dealing with people, there are going to be some headaches, whether it's had to do with maintenance, or whether it has to do with tenants, or whether it has to do with anything. It's always something that comes along with being a landlord. And then there's the other thing, like I mentioned, was the Airbnb. Airbnb has become very popular over the years, become very lucrative as well too. So a lot of times, if you buy a property and you have it in a good location and you choose to do an Airbnb, that can be very profitable as well too. I always say, like, check the local Airbnb guidelines in your state. The reason why I say it is because the guidelines vary from state to state. So what applies in California does not necessarily apply in Texas. What goes on in Texas doesn't necessarily goes on in DC. What goes on in DC doesn't necessarily goes on in New York. So again, please check the Airbnb guidelines when you are looking into an Airbnb. So these are the different forms of real estate investing. So please keep that in mind, because a lot of times when people are talking about investing in real estate, people sometimes to be all over the place and they don't really want to know. So everybody wants to jump into it, but just understand there's a lot of people already into it. So you got to know what's going to work for you, because you don't want to waste your time, money, and efforts. So that's that aspect. Now I want to talk about EMDs with new construction. Last week when I was going over some things, I spoke to, excuse me, over the weekend, was basically they're considering getting a new construction. So they was asking me questions about the EMD. First of all, they said, what's the EMD? The EMD, like I previously said, is the earnest money deposit. It's deposit that's required when you write an offer on majority of the property these days. Back in the day, people didn't do EMDs. And what happened with that situation was a lot of sellers suffered because of that. You had people who were writing multiple offers on multiple properties. Once they got something they liked, they went on with that property. They left the sellers on hold on the other properties. The sellers end up taking it off the market, lost a potential buyer. So now a deposit must be required with all offers, actually to show how serious that the buyer is actually in with purchasing that particular property. Now, with new construction, most EMDs, whether you're using a VA loan or any type of loan, minimum is 5% of whatever the purchase price is. If you're buying a $700,000 home, 5% is $35,000. That's the minimum in most cases. They tend to want that requirement because it makes the buyer, they want to make sure that they have a ready, willing, able, and serious buyer. So that also will go towards your down payment. So let's say you're using a conventional loan and you have to put 10% down. Because you put that 5% down in the beginning, when you go to settlement, you only have to put the difference, which will be the remaining 5%. So that is, what most new constructions require. Now, that's not the standard all the way across the board. You will always have to talk to the new construction to see what that deposit is required. But just understand that that deposit is holding the buyer's lot space and that home. And in most cases, if the buyer defaults on the contract, it does become non-refundable. So when you're dealing with new construction, it's always good to read the fine print to make sure that you fully understand what that particular new construction builder requirement is for the buyer. Because a lot of times people get caught up going into new homes, falling in love with the model homes, wanting to make an offer. And sometimes people don't always be in a position to buy right then and there, but sometimes they will persuade you to, oh, you can write the offer now, get your finances straight later. Okay, that's becoming an emotional buyer. My recommendation will always be no, don't do it. My recommendation would be, like, a lot of times you're feeling like that, come back later on when you know what I'm saying, you're not as attached to the property, because it'll give you a chance to think. Because once you sign the contract, or once you have to start putting money down, a lot of times, like I said, read the fine prints. There are a lot of people that I know who actually have lost their EMD at new constructions because they did not read the fine print. And and their EMD did become non-refundable to them. So I always tell people read the fine print. If you don't want to read it, get a realtor, an experienced realtor, not just any realtor who can help you with new construction. Because you have to understand, like I mentioned also last week, the salespeople, they work for the builder. They don't work for you. When you walk into a new construction, you don't have anyone working for you. Why not get a realtor? Because in most cases, the builders have to pay the realtor anyway. You're not even going to pay the realtor that's coming in there to represent you. So it's much easier to get someone who has some experience that can help you navigate through the process, especially with new construction, because that way it saves you time, money, and effort. And in most cases, it really costs you nothing, but it saves you something. It saves you a lot. So please keep that in mind, because new construction is lovely. It is great. But understand that it comes with a cost. And sometimes the cost will be someone's EMD, because if you will Google a lot of these new constructions, you will see a lot of people have lost some EMDs in many cases. And it's for various reasons. But a lot of it has to do with defaulting of the contract. So please keep that in mind when you're going into new construction about the EMD, because the EMD, the earnest money deposit, is a requirement. Even if you're using a VA loan, you don't put any money down as far as the down payment, but it is a requirement. The EMD shows that you are a serious, ready, willing, and able buyer, and that money is given credit to you towards your down payment and closing costs anyway. So it's really not a problem. So I just want to make sure that you understood that aspect, because I did get a phone call about that, and I wanted to make sure that you were clear on that. So I'm about to do my Q&A. That's the questions and answers. If you all have any questions pertaining to real estate, please feel free to post them. I'll be right back in a second. Okay. All right, I am back. Q&A. This is this part of my show where questions are asked and I answer them. So I'm looking to see if I have any. Hold on. Okay. I have 2 questions right now. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to post them. The first question is, can you pay off a HELOC after settlement? Can you pay off a HELOC after settlement? For those who don't know what a HELOC is a home equity line of credit. It is basically like a second lien against a property where a homeowner can pull out equity from their home without having to refinance. They're just adding a second lien. So it's like an equity line of credit. So can you pay off a HELOC after settlement? The answer is no. What happens with a HELOC is, like I just mentioned, it's a second lien against a property. All liens and judgments against a property has to be paid by settlement, because in order for the title companies or lawyers to transfer the title from the seller over to the new buyer, everything has to be clear. Most of the time, HELOCs, liens, and everything are associated with that address and associated to that homeowner in most cases. So can you pay it after settlement? No, it has to be paid by settlement. You cannot pay a HELOC after settlement, because in a lot of cases, waiting to do so afterwards is not going to guarantee the people that they're going to get their money. So that question is, I don't know, I guess the person wanted all the equity or something. Another question is building on land. How do you get started? Building on land. How do you get started? That's a very good question. Now, when it pertains to building on land, there are certain things that a person should know. First of all, you need to know what is the land zoned for. There are many properties out here where they say land for sale, land for sale, land for sale, but many people do not know what the land is zoned for. You have to find out, because in this particular area and in many areas, land can be used for commercial, residential, or agricultural. In some places where you have a lot of commercial spaces and commercial buildings, you may see land for sale, but that may be for commercial use only. In other areas where you may have residential, sometimes you may have that land that's zoned for agricultural, whether you realize it or not. And in other cases, there are some that are zoned for residential. First, find out what the land is zoned for. Okay, if you're looking at a particular land somewhere, I would say find out what is the land zoned for. Second of all, how are you going to finance it? Let's say hypothetically, if you want to put a home on that land, there's a thing called a construction loan out here. Okay, depending on where you are, I would say Google construction loan. Find out about the construction loan, getting financed for that, because people see houses and stuff, and the reason why houses are built and it's easier to buy than to do all this is because a lot of doing this is very tedious. It's like when people are dealing with their own credit. Some people will call the credit bureaus and challenge the things on their credit report. Some people will just hire a credit specialist to do it for them. So when you're talking about land, you want to first find out what is it zoned for: residential, commercial, or agricultural. Second, you want to figure out how you're going to finance building on it if it's a residential, because there are many components to building a home. Like I mentioned before, I would suggest looking to a construction loan and then hiring a small construction company. There are a lot of small construction companies out here that work because there are many components to building a home: the plumbing, foundation, electrical, roofing, just drywall, just everything. You want to make sure that the house is built up correctly and that it's in code, as far as not falling apart, no electrical issues, things of that nature. And they're just being up to par as far as, the latest standard. This is 2023. So you want it in 2023 standard. You don't want it in 1963 standards, being wired. Back then they had 2-plug prongs. Now they got 3 plugs and everything. They got all this HDMI. They got all this high wire stuff. And on top of that, just the electrical and the foundation and the plumbing. So you want to make sure everything's up to par. So look into the construction loan, hire a small construction company. The big construction companies, like in this area, we see Clock Construction everywhere. They dealing in millions and billions of projects. Dollars, millions and billions of dollars for their projects. So a lot of times they're not going to want to do a small little home and stuff. They want millions of dollars. So you can get a small construction company. So again, if you're looking to get into buying land, first, find out what the land is zoned for. Second, how you're financing it. If you have the cash, that's great. If not, look into a construction loan. Third, hire a small construction company. Now, for those of you who know a whole bunch of contractors and you want to play like a project manager and manage all those people, you don't have to get a small construction company. You can just hire the electrician, the plumber, the all the people who's going to do the roofing, the drywall, and everything else. You can just hire all of them separately, and you're just going to be the project manager, which is sometimes another headache. So I would suggest to hire a small construction company. So it's really 3 things. First, finding out what the land is zoned for. Second, finding out how you're going to finance it. You can get a construction loan. Third, hiring a small construction company. And then once you hire the small construction company, they'll let you know everything from there. So those are 3 components about building on land and how you get started. Let me see if I have any more questions. Hold on. All right. So we're going to go into, those seem to be the questions. We're going to go into my topic of the day, and I will be right back. All right. Thank you for still being with me. So my topic of today is a closed mouth don't get fed. Now, I was holding a conversation with a buddy of mine, and we was just talking about life in general. And when we were sharing, conversations about things we've been over time, because it was actually his birthday a couple of days ago, we were just talking about a lot of things. And the conversation came up about how some people have a delusional mindset. That's what I'll say, a delusional mindset, because some people expect that you can read minds. People expect that you should know. People make assumptions all the time. You realize that a lot of people run with their own assumptions? Sometimes they don't even hold a conversation with someone else without just taking off based off their thoughts and logics because they never had a conversation with the other person. But at the same time, we were also talking about how some people in general, whether it's on your job or whether it's in your relationship or whether it is just like your own family members who don't open up their mouth and speak when they should to you, but they talk to other people. And a lot of times people don't get what they want in life because they don't open up their mouth to the right people. They open up their mouth to the wrong people majority of the time. See, a closed mouth don't get fed means you will starve yourself to death if you don't open up your mouth. You will starve yourself when it pertains to the friendships, relationships, and things will eventually die when it is starved because you didn't open up your mouth to talk or speak on whatever it is that needed to be addressed. And that goes to saying in life, no matter what it is, when it's pertaining to business, people don't open up their mouth to ask for business. They assume, oh, people know I'm in business, so they should automatically use me. But that's not the reality. See, sometimes when you're in business, no one knows how well or bad you're doing in business because they can only go by perception. They see you, they assume, oh, he or she, they must be doing well. But then at the same time, there's someone else who's hungry for business will say, look, I know, what I'm saying, I'm new in business. Can you give me an opportunity? I'll show you what I can do. They open up their mouth. And then a lot of times that led to them getting business. While the other person who never opened up their mouth could be dying in their business, but they never open up their mouth because they assume that, oh, such and such should know that I'm selling this or I'm doing this. But the thing about it is you never open up your mouth and ask for anything. And the same thing applies when it pertains to relationships. Sometimes people will assume that, oh, they should know how I feel. Like, for example, a man can work all day and he can come home and then he can had a hard day at work. And then let's say no food is ready and his wife been home for 3-4 hours, whatever. And then he say, well, she should know that I work hard and everything. She should know that I'm tired. No, she don't. She don't know what your day is because the reality is you don't know what her day was. See, the problem is you didn't open up your mouth and say, hey, how you doing? How was your day? Because a lot of times when you ask certain questions, it creates certain dialogues between people to the point where people can really get out what's going on. But then when people sometimes think that others should know how they feel, you're really becoming somewhat delusional because no one knows what you feel. No one can read your mind. People are not mind readers out here. Same thing applies. Let me flip it around. Let's say hypothetically it's a male and female in a relationship again. And let's say hypothetically that woman, she wants to go out on dates and everything. And he used to take out on dates, but he don't take out on dates and everything anymore. It could be a reason why he don't take it. Let's say he don't take out on dates because maybe he feels like he's not appreciated by her or he's not loved by her. You know what I'm saying? So he said, you know what, I'm gonna stop taking out on date just to see how she responds. But then she never responds and say, oh, why you don't never take me out on dates? She just doesn't say anything. So then now she's assuming, well, he know I likes dates and everything, but he ain't take me on no dates. He ain't bring me no flowers. And he probably say, well, dang, she ain't even saying nothing about me not taking her on dates anymore. See, the problem is a lot of times there's so much lack of communication that goes on in the world, whether you're on your job, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're doing business and everything, because everybody act like somebody's supposed to know how others feel. Everybody act like somebody's supposed to know what others is going through. The truth is nobody knows what anyone is going through because you're not in their shoes. So a closed mouth don't get fed when it pertains to a lot of things. And when a mouth is closed and it don't get fed, things starve. And when things starve, starvation leads to death. And that means the depth of relationship, the depth of business, the depth of so many things that could stay alive if people just open up their mouth to say what's going on. See, you should never make an assumption because the first three letters of the word assumption is ASS. And y'all know what that is. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm also saying is this: stop keeping your mouth closed if you expect to be fed. If you want to be fed business, open up your mouth. If you want to be fed love, respect, and be valued, open up your mouth. Nobody out here can read mine. If you think somebody, like I ain't gonna lie, I done told plenty of people, if you expected me to figure it out and you never said it to me, you're gonna be waiting forever. Because here's the thing. I'm a person that don't like to make assumptions. I'd rather somebody tell me, and then once you tell me, now I know. And then when you tell me, also make sure that I'm actually looking you in your face, because sometimes I may be doing other things and you might told me, but if I ain't looking at you directly or I'm not paying attention, then that's the same as we being in a room together and then I overlooked you and then you assume because you saw me that I saw you, but I really didn't see you because I'm looking by you because I'm looking at the person behind you, but you thought that I saw you. And that goes on a lot when it pertains to people. You understand? So a closed mouth don't get fed. It won't ever get fed. And if it's not fed, it will never grow and thrive. See, in order for you to keep moving, you have to be fed as a human being. In order for you to grow when you're young, you have to be fed. You have to constantly be fed. Try closing your mouth all day today and watch how much your stomach growl. Watch how much, you know what I'm saying? Just keep your mouth closed. Don't say nothing else from now to midnight. Watch how much your stomach start to growl. Watch how thirsty you get. And the way that you feel, way that your body act, that's how relationships act. That's how business act. A closed mouth will never get fed. Assumption will make things dead because assumptions is nothing but one thought. People think they're so smart these days. There's so many people out here who think they're so smart. They think, oh yeah, they make all these assumptions and then they run with their assumption and they think they smart because a few times in their lifetime they made assumptions and they was right. Now they think they the person that's always right. That's like the same person who plays the lottery and then you hit one time in your life. Now you 45 years old and then in 25 years you've been playing since 20, you never hit the jackpot. You hit a few times for the little pot and you think, oh, I'm so close, I'm so close, I'm so close. It's the same when you make an assumption. See, assumptions is just that. That's your thoughts. That's your idea. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. Because I know, like, from my own personal experience, there are plenty of people who make assumptions. I always say, and this stands true for me, 90% of the assumptions about me that people think they know, they don't know. They wrong most of the time. It's when they hold a conversation with me and then they realize, oh, well, I never knew that. I thought this. I know because you looked at it. Because people like to look at a book and judge a book by its color. I'm sorry, by its cover, not its color. I'm sorry. People look at books and judge people by the cover. And you can never judge a book by its cover because there's so much wonderful things that are inside books. And there's so many bad things that are inside books as well, too. But if you just look at the outside of it and you think this looks like it's a good book. How many of y'all ever read a good book to those who read? Whoever got a book and it looked good on the outside, and you're like, oh, the topic looked good and the book was terrible. Then you got one of those books that was messed up and everything. You read it and it was one of the best books you ever read. See, you can never judge a book by its cover. And stop making assumptions and open up your mouth and stop being, thinking you know everything. Stop thinking people know you, thinking people know how you are, know how you feel. People should know. No, nobody should know. I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm speaking for everybody. No, nobody should know. Your own parents shouldn't know. Your parents they might have raised you and stuff like that. But see, you develop over the years. You change. You ain't the same person you was when you was a baby. You ain't the same person you was when you was 5. You ain't the same person you was when you was 10. You ain't the same person when you was 15. You ain't the same person when you was 20. Sometimes your parents don't even recognize your kids. You know what I'm saying? We have kids, they become adults. You like, dang, I don't know where they come from because they don't act nothing like me or the other parent or whatnot. So the point that I'm making is people change. Time change. You're not the same person you was 10 years ago today. And you're not going to be the same person 10 years from now that you are today. So because you change all the time, what makes you think people know what's going on in your mind? What makes you think people should know what's going on or how you feel? People don't. So I stress and say a closed mouth don't get fed, period. Because a closed mouth is going to lead to you being dead, period. And that means dead in relationship, dead when it becomes the business, and dead, period, if you stop eating and drinking today. A closed mouth does not get fed. So I just want you all to reflect on that, because for those of you who keep making these assumptions and thinking that people know, you're going to be left out in the cold, unfortunately. And you can change all that because life and death is in the power of your tongue. That's why when people open up their mouth, a guy can walk into a bar, say the right words, leave with a pretty woman. Guess what? They can have a good time that night, end up having a baby. See, that baby was formed by the life he spoke when he went into that bar. And then sometimes people can say things out their mouth that they shouldn't. And unfortunately, it leads to an altercation and somebody loses their life. And unfortunately, the person who lost their life is what came out of their mouth. See, life and death is in the power of your tongue, what you say. Your tongue can't work and operate if your mouth is closed. A closed mouth don't get fed. And that's all I want to say. I want to thank you all for joining me today, each and every Friday at 12 noon for Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live with Damon, the agent. The recap of today is when it pertains to real estate investing, please know which type of investment you're going to do because there are many forms of real estate investing. And then when it pertains to the EMD with new construction, it is a requirement and it is usually a minimum of 5%, but please always read the fine print. And again, when it pertains to a closed mouth, don't get fed. Please open up your mouth. It would change your world in so many ways if you just talk about what's on your mind. That's the only way things going to change because things don't change when people don't say nothing. Nobody cannot be out here assuming anything. Assumption leads to wrong. That's a hypothetical guess in many cases. And at the same time, the first three letters of the word assumption is usually what the person ends up being. Hey, I didn't say it. That's just how it's spelled. You all have a great day. Thank you again. I appreciate you all. I will see you next week. Talk to you later.